Human gave an alien girl a leg massage. You won't believe what she did next asterisk. The Galactic Nexus station floated like a crystalline temple in the void, its mirrored domes reflecting twin stars in perpetual dance. From a distance, it looked serene, perfect, eternal. But inside its core, life was a swirl of deals, diplomacy, danger. And Desire. Commander Archer Ray stepped off the Resolute with the precise gait of a man who had survived far too much. His gray sleeveless tank clung to the curve of his shoulders, damp from a fast, military-grade decontamination shower. Scars trailed his arms like faded topography maps, each one etched from a skirmish that hadn't made it into the official record. 12 hours of shore leave. That's what they gave him after dragging an ambassador through a collapsing compound under heavy fire. 12 hours to drink, decompress, and forget. He didn't speak to anyone as he crossed the atrium into the panoramic lounge, choosing a quiet table near the curved wall of reinforced glass. Stars glimmered beyond it, caught between the hum of docking tethers and the distant pulse of engine trails. The bartender slid him a Martian whiskey neat, double, and the burn that followed made his shoulders ease for the first time in days. That's when he saw her. She sat alone at the bar, one leg extended slightly, the other bent awkwardly under. Her skin shimmered with a pale turquoise glow, not reflective but alive, as if lit from within. Silver hair spilled over her shoulders in a silken cascade, and her bodysuit, tight, high-cut, and sleeveless, was engineered more for aesthetic dominance than comfort. But Archer's trained eyes locked not on her curves or the dip of her neckline, but on the tension in her thigh. Every time she shifted, she winced, her hand moving instinctively to her calf, massaging deep into the muscle. Instinct overtook. Caution. He approached, drink in hand, and nodded toward her leg. Muscle strain? He asked, voice casual but alert. Her gaze snapped to him, eyes like cobalt fire, glowing faintly in the lounge light. Her pupils contracted, slitting like a feline's, her posture shifting just enough to remind him she wasn't human. What business is it of yours, human? Her voice was music with a knife edge. Archer shrugged, sipping his drink. Just an observation. I'm a field medic. That looks like a grade 2 soleus strain. Her brow lifted, intrigued despite herself. And I suppose you're offering to help? Out of kindness? He smiled, settling into the chair beside her. Actually, yes, Archer Ray, Alliance Special Operations. I've treated soldiers, ambassadors, mercenaries, and now possibly one stubborn heiress with poor warm-up habits. She blinked slowly. Then, with theatrical reluctance, she extended her leg across his lap. Very well, Commander. Show me. This miraculous healing touch. Her skin was cool under his hands, smooth like satin. As his thumbs pressed into the tight knot behind her knee, her entire body tensed. Then slowly, visibly, her expression changed. Surprise overtook suspicion. Her breath hitched. How are you? That pressure point. Trigger release. Stimulates. Blood flow. Reduces fascial adhesion. Simple human massage. Old tech, he murmured, focused, but effective. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed faintly across her skin like veins of light under the surface. Iona, she said suddenly. Just Iona. He glanced up. Nice to meet you, Iona. They shared another drink, and then another. Conversation flowed like the brandy she ordered, exotic, layered, intoxicating. She teased him for his species' reckless hobbies. He marveled at her culture's controlled elegance. The air grew warm, filled with laughter and subtext, until 3 shadows moved behind them. Archer didn't turn, but he sensed them. Heavy boots, combat-ready posture, the faint ozone tang of plasma weapons in the air. Iona Navari, one growled. Your father demands your return. Now, she didn't flinch. I wasn't aware my father consorted with hired thugs. We're not here to chat, the female of the trio said, fingers grazing her sidearm. Archer sighed and finally stood, positioning himself between Iona and the mercs without seeming like he had. Station regs are clear, he said evenly. No weapons drawn in civilian zones. Minimum sentence. 5 years on Drekar mining rotation. Care to test it? The lead mercenary's eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake, human. Maybe, Archer said, his voice low and calm. But it won't be the first. The tension crackled like charged glass. But finally, the mercs stepped back, disappearing into the crowd. They'll report to my father, Iona said softly. Archer turned to her, his tone unreadable. That makes 2 of us who now owe him something. But neither moved. Not yet. Not while the glow in her skin still mirrored the heat building between them. Not while the massage still echoed in both their bones. Asterisk. The luxury suite Iona led him to occupied one of the highest tiers of Nexus Station, above the executive levels, past biometric gates, and through a curved corridor of quiet elegance. The kind of place meant for heirs, dignitaries, or beings who didn't need to worry about price tags or protocol. The doors whispered open to reveal a space bathed in soft blue light. Glass walls offered a breathtaking panorama of the binary stars. The furniture was sleek and organic, grown rather than manufactured, its curves matching the aesthetic of her people. The moment they stepped inside, the atmosphere sealed silent. Still, Private Archer took in the view with a soldier's eyes, scanning exits, blind spots, defense systems. Then he turned to her. Nice place, he said. You always travel with a full diplomatic suite? Iona smirked as she approached the drink console. This isn't travel. This is exile with amenities. She gestured to the lounge chair nearest. The window. Sit. Relax. You did fix my leg after all. He obeyed, reluctantly lowering himself into the supple seat. The ache from the mission was catching up now, shoulders tight, thighs sore, brain humming with residual adrenaline. Brought 2 glasses of a pale, effervescent liquid and handed him one. Their fingers touched. A hum passed between them, not imagined. What is this? He asked. Centaurian nectar. Not alcoholic, but euphoric. Legal, mostly. She sipped hers. Watching him from behind the rimmed out Archer took a cautious taste. It was like swallowing cool sunlight, smooth, floral, charged with something he couldn't place. He blinked. You feel it? She asked, her voice suddenly lower. He did. Not intoxication. More like heightening. Sounds sharpened, colors deepened. But more than that, he could feel her subtly, quietly through the air, through their earlier contact. Like a skin memory. What happened during that massage? He asked finally. Iona turned away, pacing toward the window. Her silhouette against the stars was haunting luminous skin, rippling with faint pulses of light that traveled down her arms and legs in slow rhythms. My species, she said, is touch reactive. Neural pathways can be externally stimulated. Most are dormant genetic redundancy. But under certain conditions, with the right contact. You lit up, he murmured, watching her glow. She turned back, her silver hair drifting like liquid mercury. Yes, I did. And I haven't in years. The air thickened between them. She moved closer. He didn't stop her. When she stood between his knees, she placed her hand on his shoulder and leaned in just slightly, studying his face. There are things you don't understand about me, Archer Ray, she whispered. I'd like to, he replied, his voice barely above breath. She kissed him. Cool at first, her lips warmed quickly, and as their mouths moved together, the neural feedback intensified. Archer felt her pulse in his own chest. A flush of emotion, not just attraction but curiosity, loneliness, desire. Pain poured into him like heat through cloth. He pulled her into his lap without thinking. She didn't resist. Clothing was undone, then discarded in pieces between kisses. Her skin was alive everywhere he touched, triggered a light shower beneath her surface. Blues, purples, and brilliant silvers flowed along her curves, glowing brighter. The more she gave in. Their bodies fit, but their connection ran deeper than anatomy. Every caress felt amplified, every breath shared. Their bodies moved with a synchronized rhythm that bordered on psychic, their pleasure spiraling in tandem. It wasn't just sex, it was communion. Her forehead touched his when it was over, both of them breathless, blinking away starlight behind their eyes. "I've never—" She began, then stopped. "I know," Archer said softly. He felt it. Somehow, he knew. They lay entangled for what might have been minutes or hours. The silence wasn't awkward. It was sacred. Until the sharp tone of Archer's comm unit broke the spell. He reached for it reluctantly, still cradling her against his chest. The message scrolled in bold text. Priority transmission from Captain Harrington. Subject: shore leave terminated. Objective active. Target: Invari Eris access and confirm tech details. New orders. Infiltrate. Report. Acquire prototype. He stared at the message for a long time, heart sinking. Bad news? Iona asked quietly beside him. He glanced at her. The glow in her skin had faded, but the warmth in her gaze remained. Archer smiled faintly, swallowing the twist in his gut. "Just work," he said, "but it can wait a little longer." Outside the window, the stars drifted on in silence. But somewhere deep in the station, a drone's lens refocused, transmitting every heartbeat, and whispered to a shadowed figure with eyes like frozen steel. And the game had only just begun. Asterisk. The Invari Council Chamber loomed like a cathedral, built not for worship, but for commerce and control. Archer stepped through the polished obsidian archway, every muscle taut beneath the charcoal-gray formalware Iona had chosen for him. It clung, like liquid, threaded with shimmering blue trim that echoed the bioluminescent pulses of her skin. He didn't know what disturbed him more, how easily she dressed him for politics, or how natural it felt to walk beside her, their hands brushing once, briefly, and sparking emotion across their silent neural bond. Iona's face was unreadable, now composed, dignified. She wore a deep sapphire gown split high at the thigh, her markings luminous beneath the fabric, her silver hair coiled into a regal braid. This wasn't the warm, teasing woman he'd held hours ago. This was Lady Iona Navari, heir to the most powerful biotech dynasty in the quadrant. 7 council members sat at a massive black stone table, arranged in a semicircle, like judges from a time before spaceflight. Archer scanned them automatically. 3 males, 4 females, all Azaran, their glowing eyes watching him with veiled disdain. Except for one. A younger male, bearing the same silver-flecked markings as Iona, tilted his head with open curiosity. "Daughter," came a voice sharp as fractured glass. Archer turned toward the speaker. Jan Navari. Her father, the patriarch. He looked like a statue carved from cold steel, every line of his face angular and severe. His eyes, so similar to Iona's in color, lacked even a flicker of warmth. "You bring an outsider," Jan said, not rising. From his seat to family matters. Iona's voice was poised, but Archer felt the tension ripple through her, shared via their bond. "I bring my personal security consultant," she said. "Given recent events, I deemed it prudent." The room rippled with murmurs. "A human," said an older woman with rings of data chips spiraling her arms. "From a species with no stake in galactic commerce accords." Archer smiled politely. "True, Counselor, but we have an impressive track record of showing up where we are not invited." A few of the members smirked. Jan did not dot his gaze, locked on Archer. Your name is Ray. Commander, you served during the Harnethy bio-crisis, did you not? I did, Archer said, his voice flat. He recognized the trap. This wasn't small talk. It was a probe. And now you serve as a security escort? Jan's tone held contempt. I serve when needed, Archer replied coolly. And your daughter's recent run-in with armed mercenaries seemed like one of those times. Before. The conversation could darken further. A klaxon screamed through the chamber. Lights shifted red. The holographic walls blurred, then reformed to display internal security feeds. Dozens of Devarian mercenaries, the same species who had confronted them in the lounge, were storming through the station's executive level. Perimeter. Breach, blared an automated voice. Unauthorized armed forces advancing on council chamber. Security lockdown initiated. Talon, seal the doors. Jan barked at the younger male, clearly his son. Talon moved fast, his fingers dancing across a recessed console. But it was too late. With a concussive roar, the massive chamber doors blew inward in a storm of shattered alloy and smoke. Figures poured in armored, armed, and efficient. Cover! Archer shouted, already moving. He shoved Iona behind a pillar, just as plasma fire ripped through the room. The sound was deafening screams, weapons discharges, the snap hiss of shields failing. Archer drew the sidearm from his ankle holster, its grip already warm from body. Heat. He sighted, fired 1, 2, 3 mercs dropped before they hit the floor. Talon was beside him, remarkably calm under pressure, returning fire with a compact pulse rifle. You're good, he muttered between shots. Alliance training. Archer replied, You? Born into chaos. From across the chamber, Iona shouted, The lab! Secure rear access. Archer moved in cover formation, keeping her behind the stone balustrade as they weaved toward the hidden panel Talon had mentioned. Behind them, Jan and several council members had already vanished, protected by private security and prearranged. Escape hatches. Cowards, Archer thought grimly. Typical, they made it. Talon punched the access code. A section of the wall shimmered and dissolved, revealing a corridor bathed in sterile white light. They stumbled inside, and the door resealed. Behind them, with a vacuum-sealed hiss, the chaos fade muffled but distant now. The lab was vast. Unlike the ostentatious council room, this place was pure function tanks of nanogel, suspended neural cores, racks of data slabs still warm with live code. Archer stared, breath-catching. I've seen this layout, he said. This matches. Alliance intelligence on the rumored prototype. Iona moved to a central console, already entering override commands. It's real, and it's almost finished. Archer turned toward her. You knew? I've been sabotaging it from the inside, she said. My father wants to weaponize consciousness transfer. I want to heal. This was my mother's work before she died. He twisted it. Talon leaned against a biochamber, breathing hard. She's the leak your alliance has been trying to trace. And you're the heir helping her? Archer asked. Him. I'm the illegitimate son no one sees. It's my favorite position, Talon said dryly. Perfect for sabotage. Iona turned to Archer. You said you were here on leave. That was a lie. He didn't flinch. Yes, her eyes searched his. Hurt flickered through their bond. So what now? You report this and leave? He stepped closer. No, I stay. But if we're going to stop your father from turning this into a weapon, a plasma bolt seared past the lab's outer wall. More mercs were coming. Reinforcements. Iona's voice sharpened. There's only one way to fix this. She pointed to a shimmering headset and its twin delicate, glowing like ghost metal. You and I, we merge. Complete the interface. Bond. Fully. It's the only way to secure the prototype and prevent replication. Archer stared at the device. then at her. The weight of trust, betrayal, and everything that had passed between them hung in the air. "If we do this," he said slowly, "there's no going back." Iona's expression was fierce, resolute. "Then don't go back." Another explosion rocked the corridor behind them. Archer nodded once. "Let's finish what we started, with a massage." Asterisk, the interface chamber, was quiet, eerily so. Chaos outside felt worlds away, muted by thick alloy walls and quantum insulation. Only the low, rhythmic hum of the neural core pulsed through the air, like a machine breathing. Archer stood before the twin headsets, one already glowing faintly, where Iona had calibrated it to her neural frequency. The second flickered, waiting for him. He could still feel her touch from the night before, her glowing skin beneath his palms, the way her voice had dropped into something softer, something real. That intimacy, however unexpected, had become the foundation for something deeper, something that now had to save them both. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. His pulse matched the tempo of the core. Iona stepped beside him. "No, but it's either this, or watch my father hand over a weapon to the Krell that can enslave entire civilizations." Archer nodded. "Then I guess I'm your partner in crime now." She handed him the headset. "Not crime, revolution." They both sat on opposite sides of the console, placing the shimmering devices over their heads. The neural bridge began its sequence with a sound like distant wind chimes and water lapping against stone. Their surroundings shimmered and then dissolved. Consciousness expanded like a bloom in zero-gravity dots suddenly. Archer wasn't in the lab. He was inside something somewhere, an ethereal space mapped out in pulses of color and geometric pathways. Floating beside him was Iona, though not physically. Her form was constructed of radiant bioluminescent strands, like a being woven from liquid light and emotion. "So this is your mind," she said, her voice ringing not through air, but directly into him. "Strange, structured, but scattered. Lots of locked rooms. Military training," he replied. "Compartmentalization. Let's open a few." They moved together through his memories, like travelers through a surreal museum, his booted feet in sand on distant worlds. Field hospital tents drenched in sweat and blood, moments of fierce survival. But also tenderness, carrying a wounded child through gunfire, laughing with comrades under a half-destroyed moon, his first scar, his last mission, his hesitation when ordered to use her. She didn't flinch. "You were sent to spy on me," she said calmly. "To acquire intelligence." "I was," he admitted. "And now? I'm choosing you." The current between them surged. The world shifted. Now it was her memories, rich in texture and light, but heavy with pressure. Training halls filled with silent tutors. Corporate presentations drilled into her as a child. Watching her mother's hands glow faintly as she healed small wounds in sick volunteers, and then the silence after her death. Jan's lectures. His obsession with power. The prototype. Her rebellion. He felt her pain, her loneliness, her longing to be seen for more than what she represented. "I never wanted any of this," she said. Just to finish her work. Heal, not harm. They floated in that truth, their neural pathways now deeply entwined, synchronized beyond what Talon's calibrations had anticipated. The bond flared with every shared heartbeat, every thought. But it wasn't overwhelming, it was clarifying. Together, they located the source code of the prototype, the digital DNA of the weapon. Archer's analytical mind broke it down. Iona's intuition rewrote it. They worked as one, tracing the flows of consciousness, inserting barriers that would prevent the tech from forcing compliance, reprogramming it into something restorative, voluntary, liberating. "That's it," Iona whispered. "We've changed it." But the neural bond did not disengage. Instead, it grew brighter, deeper. "Something's happening," she said, her form beginning to pulse and shimmer erratically. "This shouldn't, Archer. It's bonding us permanently. Not just synchronized?" "No. Merged, beyond recall." Before he could respond, the surge of feedback became overwhelming raw pleasure, intimate memory, emotions pouring into each other in a torrent. It was like every neural center in both their brains fired at once, echoing each other endlessly. Shared sensation. Shared thought. Not just a mental connection. It was intimacy itself, stripped to the soul. And then the bond snapped into place. Silence. They blinked back into the lab bodies, trembling, hearts racing. Archer slumped in the chair, sweat beading across his skin. Iona was gasping, gripping the console, her luminescent patterns flaring wildly and then softening into a gentle glow. Talon stared at them, scanning readouts on the console. You did it," he said, voice hushed. "You just created the first successful human Azeron neural bond. And based on this reading, it's permanent." Archer sat forward slowly, locking eyes with Iona. She was radiant, her glow matching the warmth in his chest. He could feel her presence like sunlight on his skin, even without touch. "It started with a leg massage," he muttered, breathless. Iona smiled. "And now you know every secret I've ever had." He reached for her hand. Their fingers laced, and the bond pulsed like a shared heartbeat. "Nothing hidden," he whispered. A soft chime came from Talon's console. He looked up grimly. "You too might want to save the romantic epiphanies. Jan's personal yacht just jumped out of Nexus space. Delivery to the Krell is scheduled within 20 hours. Iona stood, fire returning to her posture. "Then we stop him. We use the bond. We reprogram the device in transit. We end this." Archer's jaw tightened with resolve. Together. Talon's console lit up with cascading code. "You two might have rewritten more than just the prototype," he murmured. "This bond, it could be the future of sentient medicine, of empathy itself." Archer looked to Iona. Through the bond, he already felt her answer. "We're not done," she said. They weren't. Not with the galaxy. And not with each other. Asterisk, the hum of Talon's cloaked vessel pulsed softly beneath their feet as it glided through hyperspace. Outside, the swirling distortions of the jump corridor painted the windows in blues and violets. Inside, every light and system had been dimmed for stealth. But within the core of the ship, within the neural bond between Archer and Iona, something far more luminous stirred. The calibration was nearly complete. Archer stood at the observation console, his eyes tracking the star charts that mapped the path of Jan Navarre's personal yacht. The ship was sleek, untraceable, and currently hurtling toward Krell space, with a prototype that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Or end billions of lives. "You're quiet," Iona said from behind him. He turned, and his breath caught for a moment, not just because of her beauty, which was undiminished by the urgency of their mission, but because he could feel her emotions before she spoke them. Determination, dread, hope. He smiled faintly. "You already know what I'm thinking." "Yes," she murmured, stepping closer. "But I want to hear it anyway." "I've fought a lot of battles," he said, voice low. "But this is the first one that feels like it could matter for more than survival. This is about what we become as a species, what we allow." Her fingers brushed his arm. Sparks real and neural traveled up his skin. "This bond," she whispered, "it didn't just save you. It changed us. I feel you even when you're across the room. Every thought, every hesitation, every warmth. This isn't just a connection. It's a foundation." He drew in a breath as the intensity of their bond shimmered in the space between them. "And it all started with a massage," he said again, lips curving. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. You joke, but you don't understand what you did. My species has neural sensitivity most beings never notice. You touched the right pathways without even knowing it. You initiated compatibility before we ever linked minds. You didn't just reach into my muscle, you reached into my soul. Archer cupped her face gently, letting her feel every flicker of his intent through the bond. Then let's finish what we started. They retreated to Talon's transmission deck, with a modified interface awaited. Their bond was the key, and their consciousness would serve as the delivery vector. It wasn't just code they were transmitting. It was intention, emotion, harmony, a cure for a weaponized idea. Ready to be a human transmitter? Iona asked with a hint of mischief. As long as I'm bonded to the right frequency. They sat in the dual resonance chairs, headsets linking them to the neural relay. Talon activated the interface dot in an instant. They were submerged once more into the boundless landscape of thought and light. But this time, they weren't exploring each other. They were reaching outward. Together, they rode the neural stream through FTL relays, navigated data bursts across systems, and found the signature of the prototype on Jan's yacht. It glowed like a corrupted gem in the darkness. They approached it carefully. Archer provided structural logic. Iona brought empathy-merging thought patterns to reshape the system from within. I see it, she whispered inside the bond. The override protocol. Let's override it. Make it only respond to willing subjects. Erase the command hierarchy. No forced compliance. No weaponization. They wove their intentions into the code. What had once been a digital chain now became a choice, a healing instrument. Consciousness transfer reimagined, not for control, but for compassion. When the final line was laid, the system pulsed with recognition. Transmission complete. Archer gasped as they returned to physical space, the weight of the experience lingering in every nerve. Status? He asked Talon. The scientist stared at the console in awe. The signal was accepted. The prototype's core functions have been rewritten. If the Krell try to use it as a weapon now, it will fail spectacularly. Iona sagged with relief, her skin dimming to a peaceful turquoise. But your father? Archer asked. Talon tapped a new feed. The Krell didn't know about his second family. I sent an anonymous tip to Alliance Intelligence. They're en route to extract the hostages as we speak. Iona stared at the screen, silent. For a moment, her father's cold image flickered in her mind, ambitious, ruthless, but not heartless. He had acted under duress. The real enemy had been coercion and desperation, and now she'd broken that chain. What now? Archer asked. Quietly, she turned to him. Now we share what we've built. He lifted an eyebrow. Our bond? Not exactly standard medical equipment. No, she said, stepping into his space. But it's a template, the hybrid neural map. We can create a healing interface for others, restore movement to the paralyzed, treat trauma, let people connect across the walls of language and species. This is just the beginning. Their hands found each other, the bond thrumming softly with reassurance. And more, a promise they had. Stop the war. But more importantly, they had proven that something new could be built in its place, something born of touch and trust.